Hi everyone! So I do realize it is now December, so this video is a little bit behind schedule, but honestly I just lost track of time, and it wasn't until we had our first freeze last night that I was like, oh crap, it's kind of officially winter now and I haven't done my fall favorites video. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be taking a look at 10 plants that have really caught my eye for varying different reasons during the fall. We're going to go through them in no particular order. And so let's see, I think I want to start with, let's start with this one. I feel like you haven't seen this one in a while. This is my gorgeous Manjula pothos, aka Epiprimnum aureum Manjula. Now this is a combination of plants. I did have one of you who lives in Hawaii send me some cuttings of your Manjula pothos. I then also acquired some Manjula pothos to carry in my rare plant inventory, but then I decided that I have zero patience. Not that I decided, I mean, I've never had great patience, but it dawned on me that I don't have great patience. And so I decided to keep the Manjula pothos that I had acquired for my rare plant inventory and pot them up with the one that one of you guys had sent me so that I could have a fuller Manjula. Now, this has really started to take off, you guys. I mean, look how full and lush this is. This is what I have always wanted when I see people post about Manjula pothos, but we are now also trailing fairly significantly on a few of our vines. We aren't really trailing much on this side yet. This is the side though that was facing away from the window, so that probably has something to do with it. We are, let's see, I think we might, oh, well that would explain it, you guys. Hold on, there's a vine that is growing back across the top right here. Let's see if we untuck this, if we can. We should have another nice trailing vine. Try not to rip any of the leaves. There we go. All right, there we go. So there was another nice long vine going on that I didn't even realize. Is there any others doing this? Let me inspect real quick and get back to you. Okay guys, there is one more that is kind of draped across the top, but it's already rooted its way down into the soil, so I can't undrape it. But if it was undraped, we'd have another one over here that is trailing now as well. And honestly, I'm kind of happy that it rooted in the top because that's going to help to make the top look more full. So that is something that you guys can consider doing with your vining plants like this if you want them to be more full on the top than they are already. You have several options. One, you can cut from below and propagate back into the top. How successful that will be depends on a number of factors. I've covered that in some other videos, and maybe I'll do a dedicated video on it in the future. But you also have the option of when you repot a plant like this, if you've already propagated some of it and had it rooting in water, for example, you can just pot them all up together. That's usually the safer, more successful bet of those two methods. Or you can just drape a vine across the top. Sometimes you will need something to pin it down into place to make sure it has contact with the top of your substrate. And then over time, as it develops, the little aerial roots, like you can see there by my thumb, those will grow down into the soil and root, and that will help to make the top more full. Now, I did not intentionally do that on this plant, but hey, happy accident, right? But absolutely love this plant. I know when I got this, you guys had all been telling me that it's a very, very slow grower compared to, for example, Epiprimnum aureum marble queen, or even Epiprimnum pearls and jade. However, I actually have been quite impressed with the growth rate on this. Maybe it's because you guys made me feel like it was just going to be the slowest thing ever. So maybe my expectations were lower than they should have been. And now I'm like, it's not that slow. So thanks for that. But I will say it honestly has grown for me personally a bit faster than my Epiprimnum pearls and jade. That plant took forever, you guys. I mean, forever to take off and start to look like this. So if you aren't familiar, this is the plant I'm talking about right here. This is my oh so beautiful Epiprimnum pearls and jade. This is still only in a 6-inch pot, you guys. This is in an 8-inch pot, mind you. This thing took so long to do anything, and I kept moving it to different locations in my house, trying to make it happier. and it's been living for well over a year now. I'm not even sure exactly how long, probably closer to like 2 years, maybe even 2.5, on the nightstand in my bedroom that is closest to the southern facing windows. And that seems to have done well for it, but it took forever. This has definitely taken off and started to vine way more quickly than that did. And all of the individual cuttings in here were much like smaller and shorter. Maybe not much. Half as short, I guess, as what this was when I originally bought this. When I originally bought this, I'm pretty sure it was in a 4-inch pot. It was just a little plant in a 4-inch pot, but oh my God, you guys, slow as can be, but doesn't it look gorgeous when it actually decides to take off and fill in? And I've trimmed that thing a gazillion and one times, but I have never repotted back into that. That is just its own growth from the original plant that I bought. Did not have the patience for that with this. And once again, I think the reason I didn't have the patience was because you guys like made me think this thing was just going to take like, I don't know where my brain was, 10 years. I was like, it's going to take 10 years to look like this, the way you guys made it sound. So once again, you know, thank you, because now I'm happily impressed because it's doing more quick growth than I thought it was going to. But absolutely love it. It does need to be watered right now. I have a feeling it's not like crazy root bound, but it's doing that lovely thing where it basically shoots its roots down here to the bottom and is kind of doing more of the swirling them around in the bottom than filling in up top, which I hate. So even this is one of those plants where I will probably end up needing to repot it before it looks root bound up here, because this is just going to get so tightly coiled that it might start to cause problems, but we're still a ways off for that. But absolutely love it. I did recently relocate it from where I had it living, because it wasn't living in a permanent place, you guys. It was living in a pot next to the southeast facing window in my kitchen because I didn't really have anywhere else to put it once I put it into a bigger pot like this. And I recently started rearranging some plants, and you will get to see all of that in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. But once again, love, love, love this plant. Okay, next up. You know what, since we were talking about cuttings from the subscriber in Hawaii who sent me the Manjula pothos cuttings, that same subscriber also sent me a bunch of other cuttings, but one of them was for this plant, which is in a heavy cover pot. Let me take it out of its cover pot. Hopefully I think I might have watered it recently, but hopefully it's not dripping. No, it's not dripping. So this is another epiprimnum. This is an Epiprimnum aureum neon, also known as a neon pothos. This was just, I want to say, I think it was just one. No, maybe it was like 2 or 3 cuttings that this person had sent me. And I had potted them up in just a little 4-inch pot. And then earlier this year, I believe it was, we didn't repot it in a video. I'm telling you what, you guys, I have been so behind on repotting. I mentioned it in a video earlier this year, I believe, a repot and chat video, that I desperately needed to do it. And that video ran long, so we didn't do it in that video. And then I procrastinated longer than I should have, as usual. This is like my MO lately, before potting it up into this 6-inch pot that it desperately needed to be potted up into. And now it has really started to take off, you guys. Which, by the way, you guys, this is something I don't think I've ever brought up in a video before. So if you have an immature plant, such as this was when it was just 3 little cuttings that I had potted up into a 4-inch pot, immature plants that get really root bound, if you let them sit there root bound for a long, long time, the effects of not uppotting them that you will see with pretty much any plant, regardless of how mature it is, those effects, in my experience at least, tend to be exponentially greater in immature plants. And one of the main effects of waiting too long to repot a plant once it's become root bound is stunted growth or slowed growth. And that's what happened with this plant. The plant was just sitting there killing off leaves, because that happens too when you wait too long to repot, not pushing out any new growth. And then when I finally potted it up into this, it has popped off a bunch of new vines up at the top, which is helping to make it look more full and like it is more vines in the pot. And then now I have this nice one really long trailing vine and another one working on its way down over there. This will eventually trail over the side. So This is why you really should not procrastinate. One of the many reasons why you should really not procrastinate on uppotting your plants when they become super root bound. And lately I've been getting a little bit better about it. I still have a ton of plants that need to be repotted though, you guys. It's overwhelming, a little bit overwhelming. You're definitely going to be getting some repot chat videos here soon. But I absolutely am loving this plant. I will say neon pothos, like I think they look pretty, but they're not like, they weren't my first choice if I saw them in a store. Like, yeah, they look good, but I tend to get drawn more to like the pearls and jade, the Manjula, the Epipremnum, Aureum, Marble Queen, the kind of white and green Epipremnum are the ones that kind of catch my eye more. But I am absolutely loving this plant the longer that I have it. And I don't think I ever really got close enough to one of these in a store to really notice. And I think this is just normal, but correct me if it's not for those of you who own this plant. But it does get a little bit of green on yellow, I guess you could call it, variegation going on. Unlike a lot of the leaves, like most of the leaves practically have some of that going on. And I really, really enjoy that. Now, once again, this is not living in its permanent home. It has been living on my dining room table, which is kind of far back where it is from a north-facing window. It's not where I want it, which is why it is also being relocated as part of that upcoming plant relocation, restyling, I guess we could call it, video that I am doing for you guys. But super happy to have this plant, super happy that it is taking off. Okay, next up, let's take a look. Let's do this one. You guys saw this, I think the last time you saw this plant was back in either September or the beginning of October when I got back from Miami because I had given it a support pole. And this is my beautiful philodendron Red Anderson. Now, this plant had already started to take off back then, but since I attached it to this pole, which by the way is strictly what I will call a support pole, it does not have moss or anything inside of it. I'm not trying to get it to root in there to get larger leaves more quickly or anything like that. I just wanted it to have a support because it was getting, as you can see, kind of tall. However, since I did attach it to this, it has been pumping out new leaves at an even faster rate. I also did up pot it at the point that I added the pole because it was in like a 4-inch pot. There was not really room for the pole. So it is in a 6-inch pot now. I'm here to tell you right now, it was not even that root bound when I potted it up. So it's not a question of it needed more space in the pot and that's why it's growing faster. I think it's just really happy to have a support pole, honestly. And it's getting to the point where I need to do another strap around here to attach to this, but look how beautiful. Hopefully you can see, oh my goodness. Try this again. Slide over. Hopefully you can see how beautiful these leaves are looking. I love that this plant gets kind of grayish colors where the colors kind of overlap each other on these leaves. And of course the new leaves, like the one that you can see coming in right here, come in this brilliant shade of red. I absolutely love the red vines on this as well. I mean, oh my gosh, this plant is so beautiful. And you do sometimes get the very kind of white chunks of variegation on it, which is nice too. I mean, every leaf is kind of a little bit different. You guys see that one? That one's got a lot of different kind of colors and everything going on it. But, oh, that one's pretty too. Oh, I don't know. I absolutely love this plant. I can't say enough about it. And I will tell you right now, this is a hybrid philodendron, in case you're not aware. It is a hybrid of a crawler and a climber. And the hybrids of crawlers and climbers, not crawlers. Let me try this again, you guys. It is a hybrid of an upright philodendron and a climber. Most hybrids of upright and climbing philodendron tend to have an issue with their leaves getting stuck. They have what some people like to refer to as Cinderella syndrome, where the leaf kind of looks like the evil stepsister in Cinderella when she tries to squish her foot into the glass slipper and it's way too big. I have found that on the philodendron Red Anderson, those stuck leaf issues, the more mature it gets, the less likely you are to have them, or the easier they are to get unstuck. So this new leaf that is coming in right now, it got stuck, but it was so easy for me to get it unstuck without causing any damage. But for the most part, all of these leaves have been coming in unstuck, like they're not having an issue, or they look like they're going to get stuck, but then they work it out on their own without me doing anything. So I'm definitely happy about that. The leaves have been just on their own, even before I put it on the pole. They've been sizing up a little bit. Obviously, they're not, I mean, here you can see the leaves down here. They're a little bit bigger than the leaves at the bottom here. Not crazy like sizing up, but the fact that they aren't getting smaller is what makes me excited also about this plant. Because, for example, the philodendron pink princesses that I have in rare plant inventory, which I only have one left, but those things, and honestly, even my philodendron strawberry shakes, which both of those are also hybrids of upright and climbing philodendron, they have a tendency to just put out new leaf after new leaf that is slightly smaller than the previous leaf, and it drives me absolutely up the wall. So that is another thing that I absolutely love about the philodendron red Anderson. And honestly, my philodendron white princess is doing pretty well. It's kind of comparatively similar to this. It has a bit more of an issue with stuck leaves, and the leaves don't, well, at least on mine, the leaves aren't sizing up quite as quickly as this. Now, it's not putting out smaller and smaller leaves like the philodendron pink princess. It's just not quite the same as this, not growing larger leaves as quickly as this has, because both of those plants, I guess this plant had a little bit bigger leaves than my philodendron white princess at the time I got it, but not much bigger. So I can't say enough about this. Like, if you have struggled with philodendron that are combinations, hybrids of upright and climbing philodendron, maybe switch to a philodendron red Anderson, especially since they've come way down in price, and see how you do with that. I feel like you're going to have a way better experience with this than, for example, a pink princess, a white knight, whatever it may be. But absolutely love this plant. It is still living, by the way, in my west-facing kitchen window. That is where it has always lived. It seems happy. It still fit there after I repotted it, so that's where it's staying for now. Okay, up next, I don't remember when the last time we looked at this plant was, but I know the last time we looked at it, I had mentioned to you guys that it might have been in one of my quarterly favorite videos, but I had mentioned I was super excited because it had just started to pump out all this new growth in the center. And if I can find footage of that, I will put it up on screen for you. But basically, this is my, oh, of course you're wet on the bottom. This is my Syngonium Glo Go, and currently this is probably my favorite Syngonium that I own. Honestly, probably followed in a close second by my Syngonium red spot tricolor. But this plant had just decided of its own accord to start pumping out a ton of new vine growth in the center of the plant. And the last time you guys saw it, at least I think it was the last time you guys saw it, it was looking a little weird because it had like longer vines kind of making this weird shape at the bottom. And then all of this growth that you see in the top here was much lower down in between all of this awkward shaped vinage at the bottom. But that top growth over the fall finally expanded upward to the same height as the other vines. And look how beautiful it looks, you guys. It's so full. Look, you can't even really see through the spaces in there. Oh my gosh, just absolutely love it. Now, the longer vines have lost, through this process, a lot of their leaves. So hopefully you can see right there, that is kind of bare on this part. I could go ahead and trim that off, but it's still pumping out a ton of new growth on its in there. So I'm not that worried about it. It sits pretty low. It's not like on a stand or anything. So where it sits, it's close to the ground. So it's not like you can really tell, right? Because like the only way you're going to see all that is if I hold this up like this. If you're looking at it down like this, you're not going to see that. Now it is right now killing off a couple of leaves in here because I definitely went a little too long watering it the last time, and there's a ripped leaf over here that is probably has something to do with a cat. I've been having issues lately, but I absolutely love this plant, you guys. Hopefully you can see the stems, or I guess I should say the petioles, are a little bit of a reddish color, which I absolutely love as well. And this is one of the more compact Syngoniums that's available on the market. Now, I don't know if I've ever seen one of these in a store. I unfortunately, just in case one of you is going to ask, where did you get it from? I got it from Plantarina, and obviously Plantarina is no longer in business. So I'm sure though, if you Googled, go on Palm Street, if you aren't familiar with Palm Street, it is a great app where they sell plants in live sales. You can see the actual plant that you're going to get versus if you were to order on a website from, like, for example, Plantarina was still in business, you're going to get a plant that may or may not look exactly like the plant that's in the picture there. It's just grower's choice. But on Palm Street, you can actually see the plant you're going to get, and there's just so many sellers on Palm Street. Like, I'm sure you could find somebody who has one, or just go online and Google shopping and Google Syngonium Glo Go and see what you can find. But oh, I think one of the reasons this is my favorite Syngonium right now is just because it's so compact and bushy. That is what I absolutely love about this. The only other compact growth habit Syngonium that I own is, did I get that one from Plantarina too? I don't even remember where I got my other one from now. I think maybe I got my other one from like a big box store or something, but it is a mini illusion. I think it's a mini illusion berry possibly, but it's not even as compact as this, you guys. It's like the vines are way longer. I was just looking at it yesterday because it's another plant that it's just not really fitting where it lives in my living room right now. I need to move it somewhere else as well. But yeah, it's still more compact than my Syngonium white butterfly, for example, which I'm honestly contemplating purging that plant out of my collection, you guys. I don't know. It's getting massive, and because it's not compact like this, it is really starting to take up a lot of space. So I don't know, we'll see. But this one, oh, I can't recommend it enough, especially if you prefer a more compact, bushy plant. I mean, it is so, so beautiful, and it is still living in my one of my north-facing windows in my dining room. It has been there probably since a few months after I got it. I think I initially had it on one of the shelves on the wall in my living room, it was probably about like 4 or 5 feet back from a southern-facing window. But like I said, shortly after that, I moved it directly into a north-facing window. And even living in a north-facing window, you guys, where plants tend to get more atoliated, meaning there's longer spaces between the nodes, not on this one. I mean, would you think this had been living in a north-facing window the way it's looking? Telling you guys. Oh man, Syngonium really do well in north-facing windows. That's where my white butterfly one is living as well. But oh, look. Okay, I'm gonna quit gushing over this plant and let's move on to another one. All right. Okay. This next plant, I keep showing it to you guys because I'm just like, I love it. And it's not an anthurium. By the way, there are no anthurium in this video. For those of you who were like, earlier this year, were like, oh God, she's going down the anthurium rabbit hole. Am I like loving my anthurium right now? Yes, but none of them were impressing me as much as the other tin plants, or the tin plants that we're going to be looking at in this video. So that's why you're not getting any anthurium today. But this other plant, I keep showing it to you. I think the last time you saw it was the same time that you last saw the philodendron red Anderson, which was either at the end of September or the beginning of October. Let me grab it off the floor real quick. So you're gonna have a hard time seeing me, but this is my beautiful philodendron El Choco Red. I am in love with this plant so much, you guys, I can't even. And if you're not following me on Facebook or Instagram at Aloha Plant Life, oh my God, yesterday was not a good day, you guys. It was not a good day. It started off like, okay, I got up super early. I was actually supposed to be filming this video yesterday, and the incident that happened that I'm about to tell you about kind of like started my morning off wrong, and I ended up not filming because I was just in a bad mood for the rest of the day. But I got up super early because I had a lot to do. I was going to film 3 videos, and I decided after I fed the cats, I was going to play with them a bit. And George was having a blast playing with the toy in the living room, and then Scooter came out of nowhere and like went after the toy, scared the crap out of George. George like sprinted off out of the living room and up the stairs, and in the process he like hissed and batted at Scooter, and Scooter got freaked out by that and did his scooting sprint into the kitchen and went underneath the plant stand that I recently had put this on. And his back foot, which, let me back up for a second, just in case anybody's new here, my cat Scooter is a tripod. He only has 3 legs, and his remaining back leg, he doesn't use it the way a lot of tripod cats do, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think he just decided it's easier to scoot across the hard floors than to try and like basically hop walk on 3 legs. But because he scoots, his leg sometimes gets caught on things, and that's what happened. He just freaked out from George hissing and swatting at him, scooted really fast under the plant stand, his back foot caught it, and I mean, I stood there, you guys, I was like, I started to try to lunge for it as I saw it happening, and I was like, I'm too far away, I'm not going to be able to catch it. I might as well just step back so that I don't get like shards of broken pot in my eye, because this is in leca, so it is in a plastic pot that holds the nutrient solution, and then it's in a slotted pot inside so that the leca can absorb that nutrient solution. But I had this in a decorative ceramic planter on a plant stand. It looks so cute, you guys. Like, I'll flash it up on screen for you. Like, and I just recently did that. Oh my gosh, I can't even. But anyways, I stepped back because I didn't want to get like shards of ceramic in my eye or anything like that, or I didn't want it to like hit my foot or whatnot. And I just sat there and just like watched as the whole thing fell over. The ceramic pot broke, the leca and the nutrient solution went everywhere. The plant landed face down on this side. I was horrified. One of my first thoughts was, this is why I can't have nice pots. Like, there's 20-something dollars down the drain, because I think I paid 20-something dollars for that pot at Target. I was so not happy, you guys. And then I started cleaning it up and everything. Of course, the cats were trying to come walk through it. It was a mess. So I got the plant up off the floor, and it looked okay. It looked pretty much like it looked like it does now. However, you guys, when things like that happen, some plants bruise, is what I like to call it, more easily than others. For example, when Theo knocked over and broke a ceramic pot, I need to start keeping count of how many pots I have lost money on because the cats have knocked them over and broken them. I probably need to stop buying ceramic pots unless they're ones that sit on the floor where it's going to be harder for them to break them if they knock them over. But Theo had knocked over my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma in my bedroom and broken that pot, and that plant bruises so easily, you guys. I was dumbfounded. I mean, it was instantaneous. I got that plant back upright and it was like black lines and spots where it had hit the ground. It was crazy. So I was worried about this plant, and I will say with the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, it was exponentially worse the next day. Like, kind of like how you get bruised and the next day it looks way worse. That is what happened with that plant. So when I saw this plant looked okay, I was like, okay, what's it gonna look like tomorrow? Well, here's tomorrow. We're still looking good. We do have one small, like, funky spot right here, which I don't know if that was there before or not, honestly, you guys. And I did notice that the brand new leaf, it did get creased a little bit. I don't even know if you're gonna, oh, you can probably see it. There's like a little brown line like right about there. You guys see that? It got bent there when it hit the ground. So I don't know if that might get worse, but the fact that it hasn't gotten really worse overnight makes me feel pretty good about the fact that it's not going to get crazy bad. But oh, Jesus, you guys, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, I had the thought of, I really like where I have it. I just recently put it there. It's loving life there because look at this. Last time you guys saw this, I want to say, I think it only had 4 leaves. We're up to 6 now, and there's the tip of one. You guys are going to be able, you might not be able to see it, but the tip of a new leaf is already starting to come out of there. And once again, one of the things I did last time you saw this, I had just given it this support pole. So I think that is probably kind of helping to spur this growth along, but it is just taking off, you guys. And that new leaf is so much bigger than the other ones. Look at it. Oh, so beautiful. So, so beautiful. And the funny thing is the way this was on the stand was facing towards the southeast window in my kitchen. And then also, so it had like the southeast window over on this side. And then on this side, it had the south windows in my living room. But look at the direction that new leaf is facing. You see how it's kind of going this way? Let me tell you why I think it's doing that, and I think it's freaking hilarious. So this thing is getting plenty of light where it is, obviously. I mean, it's not looking unhappy, like nothing like that. I have a Soltech Vita grow light in the spotlight fixture over my fireplace because one of the plants that we're going to be looking at in this video has been living up there, and I wanted to put live plants on my mantle, and I just wasn't sure they were going to get enough light up there from the southern facing windows in my living room. So I installed, I don't even remember how long ago now, a Soltech Vita grow light up there. And I am convinced that the reason this plant has started turning its leaves this away is because that's where that Soltec light is over the mantle. And apparently it is more attracted to the light coming from that Soltec light than it is from the light coming from the windows around it this way. Now, the Soltec light's not even that close to it, you guys. It's like around the corner. This was positioned in that planter against like a half wall that kind of comes out off to sort of separate my kitchen from my living room. So it's a wall that's like about this thick, right, that it was just pushed against. And on the other side of that wall, running perpendicular to it, is the mantle. But it apparently was like, ooh, that Soltec light's putting out some light that I want. So it is like rotating that leaf over there. So once again, you guys, I know a lot of people are like, Soltec lights are expensive. They're worth it, you guys. They're so worth it. And that light's gonna last me like 15 years. Like, it's worth it. And if you haven't used them yet and you've been thinking about trying them, I do have a discount code that you can use with them. I will flash it up on the screen for you. You can get, I believe it's 15% off, if I recall correctly. You guys, I'm having like a senior moment here. I'm pretty sure it's a discount code. It may be actually just a specialized link. Regardless, I will put a link down in the description for you, but if I'm not flashing a code up here, it's because it's a specialized link, so just use the link down in the description. Once again, pretty sure it's 15% off. Can't recommend them enough. But obviously, this plant, other than taking a spill yesterday, has been doing a fabulous, I mean, so beautiful, you guys. It's so beautiful. And you know, those beautiful red backsides to those leaves that do fade over time, but oh my gosh, so gorgeous, you guys. Get yourself an Choco Red if you can. A lot of you have told me they don't ship well. Mine did come from Indonesia and it shipped fabulously for some reason, but I have seen ones in stores that don't look great, and people have told me it's because they don't ship well, but they don't take that. Let me try this again. I'm like stumbling over my words today, you guys. They don't take that long to recover in my experience. So like, even if they don't look that great in the store, as long as the roots look okay, you should be fine. But oh my God, absolutely love this plant. It's probably gonna be on my favorites list for a while, you guys, unless it keeps getting knocked over and starts to look like crap or something. But let me set this back down. All right, you guys, my hands are a little bit sticky, just like a lot of large heart-shaped leaf philodendron. The Choco Red does get the extra floral nectary thing going on pretty big time. So it is a little bit of a sticky plant. Just be aware and prepared. Okay, this next plant is my string of dolphins, aka used to be called a Senecio peregrines? Something like that. I will flash it up on screen for you. It is now, these have been reclassified as, oh my God, I keep forgetting what they've been reclassified as. Curio. They've been reclassified as curio. I was sitting there like praying it was going to come to me, and it did. They've been reclassified as curio plants, but I don't think you've seen this since my last full houseplant tour, which was released in January of 2024. And how is it already time for me to film another full houseplant tour, you guys? It is on my list to film next week for release the first, I think, weekend of January, because honestly, it takes me forever to film all of the plants, and then it takes me forever to edit them. So I have to start that early, but I can't believe it's already almost time for you guys to get the new full houseplant tour. But since you haven't seen this in almost a year, it probably is looking quite a bit longer, quite a bit fuller, and since probably quite a few of you might be new to the channel, especially newer than last January, let me give you a brief history on this plant. So I did, at the time that I bought this plant, go out specifically looking to purchase a string of dolphins from one of my local nurseries. And I did find this one at, I believe it was Callaway's, if I recall correctly. But one of my friends had given me a cute little planter that needed a small plant. So I was looking for just a little 2-inch version of this plant. And I went and I bought one, and the plant had been, I guess, drastically underwatered, and I didn't realize it. And so the roots were at the point of not being able to rehydrate. And so I basically had to turn this into a rehab situation. I ended up putting some of the plants, like I had to just cut everything off. I put them in water to root up. One of them I trimmed, it had a little bit of roots that were salvageable, and I trimmed it off. These were all in one pot. I say multiple plants, but it was multiple vines in one pot. And so the ones that still had roots, I went ahead and I potted them up in cacti and succulent soil. The ones that didn't, I put them in water to get roots, and then I potted them up into my Bonsai Jack's gritty mix because I wanted to do a comparison for you guys. They both did fine. They recovered fine. And then at one point I combined them together into one pot. And this thing has taken off, you guys. I haven't trimmed it at all. It has accidentally gotten trimmed by getting caught on things and cats tearing some of the vines off at the bottom. But beyond that, I haven't trimmed it at all. It was literally just 2 vines when I rehabbed it. So it has now become more vines, as you can see, just on its own, of its own accord, not me repotting back into the top or anything like that. Although one of the vines that broke off when I was watering it yesterday, I did just lay that. You guys aren't gonna be able to see it without me dumping this everywhere, but I did lay it across the soil back there because it will root into the soil. I mean, it's that easy to propagate these things, you guys. You can just cut a vine off and just make sure it's in contact with that damp soil, and assuming you're watering often enough and everything, it will start to root in there and help to fill it in. Now, I have underwatered this thing more times than I care to admit to. I have taken it up over the summer. I think I took it from a 2-inch pot into a 3-inch pot because I was just, it was like every 2 days it needed to be watered. So I was like, well, maybe if I take it up a small, one pot size, just a little bit, not smaller, a little bit larger of a pot, I won't have to water it as frequently and I will be better. And I was better for a bit, and then now it's just, I don't know. So it has lost quite a few, I know it doesn't look like it, but it has lost quite a few dolphins over the year. And it's okay though, because it's put out more and it's doing great. And honestly, it probably is going to need to be, oh yeah, it's already looking pretty root bound in there. So sometime probably around, it'll probably be okay for the winter. I probably won't mess with it, but in the spring, probably I will need to take it up to a 4-inch pot. Now with these Senecios, you guys, I know a lot of people struggle with these. I do have a video, a care guide all about these. In that care guide, I don't really, there's one thing I don't really talk about that drives me nuts about these plants, to the point where I don't know if I really want to continue to acquire more of them. I may purge some of them out of my collection. I currently have 2 string of pearls in my possession, this 1 string of dolphins, and a string of bananas. So basically, these plants, if you get the watering right and the potting right, and I'll talk about that in a second, if you get that right, these plants, and light to an extent, but honestly, it's more about the watering and the soil type and making sure it's not in too big of a pot and you're not repotting too soon. If you get that right, these plants will do fine, except for the fact that they are plants that just don't age well, you guys. They require what I like to refer to as plant plastic surgery, and they require quite a bit as they age. At least in my experience, your experience may have been different. In my experience, they require more and more plant plastic surgery and more frequently as they age. And part of that has to do with the fact that if you are just not totally dialed in on your watering and everything with these plants, they will kill off the leaves, but they won't grow new leaves back where they killed off the leaves. So you will end up with like super bare vines, and the only way you're going to resolve that is to cut them back to the top of the pot. And sometimes in my experience, they take forever to start growing again when you do that. So you definitely don't want to cut a ton of them back like that at a time on these plants. Like just don't do it. Like one at a time, be patient. You're going to have to be patient because it's going to take a while for it to put out some new growth. And you can keep it looking good if you have patience and you do that. But really, honestly, the best thing to do to mitigate having to do that super frequently is to make sure that you're watering it soon enough so that those leaves don't shrivel up and die off. So I do let this plant dry pretty much all the way out. So I did say in my care guide video, and this is what I used to do, I used to let it dry all the way out, and I would wait until the leaves started to feel a little bit squishy. That is not bad advice, you guys, but the problem is sometimes I would go and I'd be like, okay, it's dry, but they're not squishy yet. I'll water it the next time I water plants in this room. And then I would get behind schedule. And I'd be like, oh crap, it's been 4 days. And probably 2 days after that, or maybe even 1 day after that, is when it needed to be watered. And now I've got shriveled up leaves on the branches. So that's what I mean by you really got to stay on top of it. There's like a very small window of like, okay, if I water before this, it's going to be overwatering it. And if I water past this, it's going to shrivel up leaves and I'm going to lose leaves. Now, it is a very fine root plant, you guys, like, and normally I wouldn't be giving this much care advice in a fall favorites video, but since y'all haven't seen any of my Senecios in the year, I don't know why, I just had dawned on me, I guess. And I have put it in a yogurt container, which is gonna make it harder to see because it's got text on it. So my apologies for that, but hopefully maybe you can see these stupid light glares. Yeah, I think you guys can see those roots are so fine on these plants. They are super, super fine. It is a succulent type plant, and succulents have really fine roots, so you need a very well draining soil. When I did combine these, I put them into my cacti, or my cacti and succulent, the cacti and succulent soil that I use. There's a squirrel attacking a crow outside the window, you guys. Don't know if you can hear that, but they're going at it pretty hardcore. So yes, this cacti and succulent soil, I do believe it's linked in my Amazon storefront, which the link to that is in the description below for you guys. It's just a store-bought cacti and succulent soil. It works great. This plant loves it. I highly recommend that. And when you do repot, because it is such a fine root plant and it is so sensitive to being like overwatered and getting root rot if it's in too much soil that stays wet for too long, because of that, I recommend going up literally 1 pot size. Like normally when we say 1 pot size, we mean 2 inches. I mean, like if you're going from a 2-inch pot, take it to a 3-inch pot. Take it gradually, 3-inch to 4-inch, 4-inch to 5-inch. I have found that is done best for these when I don't do that, which I've only not done that, I think twice with a plant, with a Senecio. It's thrown a fit. So I just recommend, and they take forever to get root bound again, you guys. Like you don't have to repot them super frequently. So just 1 inch pot size difference when repotting them. But super happy that this thing made it, first of all, and is looking really, really nice here. And this has been living directly in an east facing window. At one point I did have it in a south facing window in my bedroom, but I felt like it was a little bit too intense for it. So it's been in an east facing window and it's been loving it. But let me grab our next plant. All right, you guys, next up we have this big, beautiful beast of a girl. This is my Calathea Rosa Picta medallion, aka Rose or Rosie is what I like to call her for short. Reminder that Calathea has been reclassified as Copertia, even though we are all refusing to accept that name. But she is, oh my gosh, you guys, like I feel like she's been featured in like a lot of the favorites, the quarterly favorite videos over the last year. I say a lot, there's only going to be 4 each year, but you know what I mean? Like she is just, oh my gosh, I can't even, you guys, look at her. And if you guys don't remember, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but one of the videos that I featured her in, one of the favorites videos that I featured in, I had told you guys that she had turned a new leaf, because if you have not watched my easiest to hardest Calathea videos, she was not at the easy end of the spectrum, and she honestly had given me more problems than most of my Calathea. And then I think it was last summer, maybe last fall, she just like totally turned it around and just started pumping out all this beautiful new growth. I used to have constant problems with her getting super crispy leaf tips that would then spread up the leaf and the leaves would die off. She always had at least like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 of her leaves looking like that. But you guys, look at her now. I have not changed a single thing, you guys. Like before anybody's like, oh, well, did you change your type of water? Oh, I have a water secret I have not told you guys. I wonder if I should save that I might save that for a separate video. I think I'm going to save that for a separate video because I do have a video planned for early next year, diving a little bit more into the various types of watering and what I recommend for various plants and whatnot and what my experience has been. So I might save my watering secret for that, but let me just put it this way. The only thing that has but that didn't change until 3 months ago. So I'm not even going to address that right now. Only one thing with her watering has changed, but it didn't change until 3 months ago. And I'm telling you, a year ago is when I was like, damn, she's really turned it around. Look how she's doing. And nothing had changed then. She's still living on my other nightstand. So this is on the nightstand in my bedroom closest to my south facing windows. This is on the opposite nightstand, which is by an east facing window. She loves life there. She's getting too big. Her leaves are going up into the lamp shade. I'm maybe going to need to just do away with that lamp if I want to leave her there. I mean, nobody uses that side of the bed, so except for George and Theo and Scooter, it's not the side I sleep on, so really that lamp has no purpose. It also hasn't had a working light bulb in it for probably 2 years, so might as well just get rid of the lamp and give her the full nightstand. But she has just been doing fabulously, you guys. I use my same fertilizer I use in all of my other plants for her. Oh, I just accidentally got lipstick on her leaf. It like brushed against my mouth. She honestly, she's not even in my forest floor mix, I don't think. Yeah, no. She needs to be repotted. I have had her for almost 3 years. No, I've had her for over 3 years, you guys. She's been in this same 6-inch nursery pot in my basic mix, which she's got to be the only, I think she's the only one of my Calathea that are still in my basic mix. Trust me when I say she probably needs to be repotted because I'm having to water her more frequently lately. And look at all this growth she's been pumping out. Like, I'm pretty sure she needs to be repotted. I haven't slipped her out to check and see because honestly, I kind of don't want to mess with her because look at her. I mean, she's just looking so fabulous. Have you ever even seen one of these in a store that looked this good? Let's be honest, you guys. Like, she looks fan-freaking-tastic. Fan-freaking-tastic. No crispy leaves. Like, her only major problem is that Scooter has started getting up there if I don't get up early enough for their liking, and Scooter's hungry. He gets up there and chews. Because now, like, I don't know if, can you guys see that? See the little holes right here on the leaf edge? That's from Scooter chewing on her. Because when we repotted the Chinanthe luberciana in my bedroom, which is what he used to like to chew on in that situation, we got all the vines high enough up, or not vines, yes, vines, all the way up high enough to where he can't chew on it. So now he's been getting on the nightstand and going to town on Rosie, which at least he has figured out. He figured this out quick, you guys, because when I first brought him home, he chewed on a few plants, like my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, the Syngonium white butterfly, and I want to say my Aglianema Maria. Like, he chewed, oh, and my big Monstera in my living room, which sometimes I still catch him chewing on that one, which is weird. But he figured out pretty quickly that I think those are toxic because the things that, and they're not, it's not toxic, like him just chewing on it for a second is not going to kill him when I say toxic. But the things in it that are toxic tend to irritate their mouths, and they're real quick, they're like, oh, like, no. So he figured out super fast that this and the Chinanthe are non-toxic, I guess, and that's why these are the two that he goes after all the time now. But other than that, like, she does not have like crappy looking leaves. She is like still pumping out tons and tons of new growth. There's new leaves. I just saw one somewhere. There's a new one coming in down in here. I don't even know if you can see it right there. Just pumping out tons of growth, even though we are now almost into winter. She is like not slowed down at all. I did just cut one leaf that was dying off of her. There's a smaller one back here that is probably about to die off because, once again, if you haven't heard me say this before, with prayer plant family plants, which Calathea are prayer plant family plants, called prayer plants in general because their leaves fold up and down to follow the light during the day, when they stop doing that. So when you get leaves, like all these other leaves have been moving up and down throughout the day, but this one stopped moving. I'm telling you right now, as soon as they stop moving like that, if it's an older leaf, like this one is, it means it's about to die off. So in a few weeks, this will probably yellow up, crisp up. I will cut it off before then, but as soon as it starts to yellow up, I'll cut it off. But I guarantee you that's what's about to start happening to this leaf. But that's not concerning because it's like a super small, super old leaf off of that offshoot. But oh my gosh, you guys, like, she's just freaking fabulous. I'm so happy she's turned it around. Like, I feel like I need to redo my easiest to hardest Calathea video now because I don't even know. I'm not sure. I'm kind of worried about how she's going to handle a repot, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let me set her back down and grab our next plant. Okay, guys, next up, and this plant, I'm glad I'm featuring it in today's video because it desperately needs to be watered, so I'm going to water it after this. But this is one of the plants from my rare plant inventory that I decided earlier I feel like it was like right at the beginning of the year, I decided I was going to keep this one. So this is a philodendron Gloriosum. Gloriosum has been on my wish list for a while, and I just had a bunch in rare plant inventory, and this one just was really catching my eye, and so I decided that I was going to keep it. Now looks like I think it's definitely about to kill off the oldest leaf. This is the oldest leaf. Looks like it's getting ready to die off, but no biggie because, I mean, it's put out a bunch of other leaves. This is the second oldest leaf, but honestly, this has looked like this since I decided I was going to keep it because it was living with the plants in my rare plant inventory, which were in my kitchen next to an east-facing glass door and a southeast-facing window, and then I moved it to my mantle underneath the Soltech grow light, which obviously it's loving it, but right after I moved it up there, this did this, and this leaf did that as well. That's part of what you're seeing on this leaf. The rest of what you're seeing on this leaf, like how it's getting brown on the end and some spots over there, it's just getting ready to kill that off. But it did this right to those two leaves right after I moved it up there. And those were the only, I think those were the only two leaves that, I think this leaf had just started to come out and Theo bit the end off while it was coming out. So that's why it has no tip on it. But this one was still coming out. It hadn't like fully hardened off. But the other two, I think maybe just adjusting to the light perhaps is what caused this. I'm not like 100% certain. If anybody else has had this before, like, I mean, it's a perfect like stripe and it hasn't gotten any worse. I mean, this happened like probably 8 months ago, you guys. It's just stayed like that. So if anybody else has had that and has a theory or knows for sure, comment down below and let me know. Oh, just realized there's a kitty bite mark up there too. But it doesn't matter that those leaves don't look great because here's the next leaf that came in after that, looking beautiful. And it has just been taking off, you guys. As you can see, it's crawling its way out of its pot. I'm not going to repot it, you guys, because I'll talk about that in a second. My experience with these crawlers, because we're going to look at another crawler here soon as well. But after that leaf, it put out this beauty. And then the newest leaf that it put out, you guys, I cannot stop staring at it. So this does sit on my mantle with this leaf facing towards the entryway of my house. So every time I walk from my office, which is next to the entryway of my house, through the living room, this is the leaf I see. This leaf came out, I don't know, a little less than a month ago maybe. But do you guys see? Oh, it's not going to read well on camera, is it? Oh, I wish it would read well on camera. It's like got pink. Hopefully you can see there's like a little pink spot right there, but in person, that whole mid-rib vein has a pinkish cast to it on like the upper half, and so do the side veins here. Maybe it's better if can you tell more? Oh, you can tell a little bit more if I don't put my hand behind it. But can you see that? Like it's different. Like this doesn't have that. There's no pinkish there. This one has this beautiful pinkish coloring, and it just catches my eye every time I walk into the living room. I'm like, oh my God, it's so pretty. Like, I don't know why it did that. Like I said, none of the other leaves have done that. I don't know if it's just something that maybe they do as they mature. Not really sure. First Gloriosum that I have had in my personal collection. Like I said, I did have a lot more in rare plant inventory, but honestly, I sold all of those before they got to this size. So this is new territory for me, but I am absolutely loving this plant. Now, shortly before I moved it to my mantle, I did discover a few spider mites on it, but I think I caught it. They must have come from another plant, but I could not figure out what other plant they came from, you guys. So if it didn't come from another plant, because I didn't have any problems on any of the other plants around it, I don't know where they came from. But there was like, I saw two. I gave it a treatment like repeatedly. I wiped the leaves down with just like an alcohol-soaked cotton swab. And I did that repeatedly for like 4 weeks, like twice a week for 4 weeks. And I moved it up to the mantle. So if it was coming from another plant, now there were no plants around it because there was nothing else up on the mantle that was a plant. So I did that and I haven't seen any since. It has been doing absolutely fabulously. Now, what I was going to say about the fact that it needs to be repotted, I'm not going to take it up into a bigger pot right now because honestly, the roots don't warrant it. So this is something that happens on these crawlers, but glare. I mean, hopefully you guys can see. There's roots. You can see some of the roots down in there. They're hard to see through this. Maybe this side's better. They're kind of bound up in the corners, honestly. Oh my gosh, it's so hard for you guys to see. Well, there are roots in here. Here, you can see some in the corner there. But they are all kind of like, it's not root bound. That's what I'm getting at. They're not spread up in the top. A lot of them are kind of at the bottom, but it's not very root bound. but it's already crawling out of this. And part of the reason I put it in this tiny little pot is because I have been having issues with Gloriosum in particular, but crawlers in general. Like, my experience with them is do not even remotely put them in too big of a pot. And what you want to do, because they crawl, like your thought is going to be, I'll put them in a pot this long because it needs room to get there. But if their root system isn't big enough to handle that much soil, you're going to have problems. So that's why I had potted it up into the kind of the smaller pot when it just had 2 leaves. It was only like back here. And now what I'm probably going to do is get another one of these and just like attach it with some zip ties to the top of this pot. And so it has something to keep going across, and wait until it gets root bound enough in each of those to then repot it up into a larger pot, because you don't want to run a risk of like too much soil to root ratio and getting it into a root rot situation. Because in my experience, that happens pretty easily. Like crawling philodendron seem to be more susceptible to root rot, once again, just in my experience, than some other plants. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I did have one of these growing in leca just to see how they did in leca. And honestly, I think if you're really struggling with roots and potential root rot, leca is a better way to go. But the leaves weren't coming in bigger. They were getting stuck a lot. Like, not stuck, but this is another thing you will experience, especially with velvet leafed crawling philodendron, is that lots of times the leaves won't fully unroll. They're not stuck. They just like stop unrolling. It's weird. I don't know. And then they're usually, they don't fully mature on the side that didn't fully unroll, and they just look kind of funky. And in my personal experience, I don't know why. Maybe it was because of where it was living in my house. I had the one in leca in my west-facing window in my kitchen. I don't know, maybe the light there wasn't great for it or what, but I had more problems with that with the one in leca than I do with the one in soil. So that's why I ended up keeping the one in soil and selling the one that was in leca. But I am absolutely loving this plant. It is a little bit wide, as you can probably tell, for my mantle. It's a little bit funky. I mean, I could cut off like some of the leaves on one side so it would fit more flat, but you know, someday I may move it off the mantle, so I'm not really worried about it. But super happy about this. However, I will say, this hasn't been crazy difficult for me to grow, but it has not been like as easy as the next crawling philodendron that we're going to look at. But before we look at that, I think we have 2 more plants to look at. Before we look at that, let's look at the second to last plant first, and then we'll move on to that one. That one, I don't even know, the other crawling philodendron, I don't even know. It might be too big for me to bring. I'm going to try to bring it in here. We may have to look at it where it lives. So let's look at the other plant first. You guys, I was just looking to see how long I've been recording this video. It's been going on for quite a while. I'm kind of worried I've just been rambling, but I guess I'll find out in editing. But our next plant that I want to look at, I also feel like we haven't looked at this one in a hot minute. So it is a scindapsus. I do currently still own 3 scindapsus. I've only ever owned, this is the most I've ever owned. So the first scindapsus I got, it might have been this one. No, I think I got my Scindapsus pictus exotica first, which looks very similar to this one that I'm about to show you, but with big, much bigger leaves. And I absolutely loved that plant when I first got it, you guys. It was not a super mature plant. It wasn't like trailing a lot, and it grew well for me and started trailing and looked great until I hit that point that a lot of people do with Scindapsus, where it starts to put out runners. Now, if you don't know what a runner is, if you've seen my video that I did recently on 3 years of growing Hoya, and I showed you my entire Hoya collection, and I showed you how they tend to put out vines that are bare and then the leaves start to form down along the vine. That is what looks like a runner. I'm not going to say it is a runner, because with Hoya they do that and then the leaves come in pretty quickly. But with Scindapsus, they put out long vines like that, and they will never sometimes put a leaf out on them. And part of the reason that they do that, you guys, is because technically Scindapsus are shingling plants. They want to lay flat against something. They don't even want a moss pole. They want like a flat plank to shingle against. And more times than not, I mean, I'm trying to think if I don't think I've ever seen a Scindapsus sold in the store set up like a shingling plant. Most of the time they are sold in hanging baskets. Occasionally I'll see them on like a pole of sort, not a moss pole, but like one of the coco coir poles or something like that. But I've never seen them sold as like a shingling plant, and that's what they do naturally in the wild. So why people aren't selling them that way, I don't know. But the problem is if you let them trail, they have a tendency to eventually decide, you know what, this is not how I want to grow. And they start putting out those runners because they're looking for something to attach to. And I'm over it. I am so over it that I'm pretty sure this is the only scindapsus that I will be keeping in my collection moving forward, because look, it's not putting out runners. And I think it might have something to do with the fact that this is a smaller leafed variety of scindapsus compared to my other scindapsus. Now this is a scindapsus Argyraeus. Argyraeus. You know I'm going to flash it up on screen for you. I think it's Argyraeus. And so this is also very similar to a Scindapsus silvery Ann. That is another kind of smaller leafed Scindapsus, although I feel like silvery Ann's leaves are a little bit bigger than this, but it looks just like my Scindapsus pictus exotica, except that the leaves are way tinier because my Scindapsus pictus exotica leaves would be the size of my hand. And so this plant, as you can see, is not putting out a ton of runners. I do think I thought I saw one. Oh, maybe this is just I don't know, this thing is so tangled on itself, you guys. I'm not gonna try to untangle this. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully you can see, like, this vine is, I don't even know where the end of this vine is, but there are some vines up here that look bare. So I was thinking it was runner, but I think no, because this is attached to the soil over here. I think it's just lost some leaves over time up top. But that's fine. I can actually pin this down to the soil and it will root and then should start to push out some new growth, just like what is happening right over here. Hopefully you can see there's this little baby vine starting up from a bald vine that I cut off over here. So yeah, that's probably what I'll do with that. But yeah, I don't really have crazy runners going on. So you can see, like, at the end of this vine right here, there's leaves. And here we have leaves coming in, right? It's kind of looking maybe like it's going to become a runner over there, but for the most part it's doing well for me. Here's another end up here that has leaves. This is what I want my scindapsus to look like. I want them to trail. Like, I don't particularly like the look of shingling plants in general, and for whatever reason my Scindapsus pictus exotica has decided to rebel. It doesn't want to do it anymore and it's really annoying me. So I think it might be one of the plants I purge out of my collection in 2025. And same thing with the Scindapsus pictus silver splash, which is another one of the plants that was sent to me by the same subscriber in Hawaii who sent some of the other plants we've looked at today. That plant is gorgeous. I mean, it's kind of like an in-between the size of this leaf and the exotica, but it's got much more silver on it. Beautiful, beautiful plant, but it's not even, it's like, it's not even trailing. You're like, well, there's like maybe one vine that's trailing. It's maybe like down to here, but it's nowhere near as full as this. And it's already putting out runners. So I'm just like, I don't know about this. And most people I know who have this one, the Scindapsus satin, technically it's a Scindapsus, satin pictus Argyraeus, I think. It's a mouthful. But most of the people I know who have this one and let it trail, it stays pretty full and bushy. They don't seem to have a crazy amount of problems with runners like that. So that's why I'm thinking this is going to be the only one that I keep. Now, this thing has taken off this year. Like, I mean, this is a ton of growth going on here. It is very well rooted, but once again, it has done the fun little thing of sending the roots to the bottom and just swirling around in there. So I will probably end up having to repot this before it looks root bound up here, because this will just get tighter and tighter coiled and push against the edge of the pot and bulge the pot, and then potentially you'll start running into problems if you let that sit like that for too long. But absolutely loving this. This has, so it's living in my west facing window in my kitchen. It's been there for a long time. I don't even remember where I had it living before that, you guys, but it's been there for at least a year, and obviously it is doing well. Now, I do just have it in a planter that's on a short little stand like this, so it's only elevated about like this high off of the counter. So I don't know also if maybe because these are just growing across the counter instead of like hanging in the air, I don't know if maybe that has something to do with why it's not putting out a ton of runners. Like, I have a theory that if the vines feel supported and not just hanging in the air like this, that they're less likely to put out the runners. And this has just been draping across the little ledge above my kitchen sink. So that might be what's going on with this. I mean, technically, I guess I could take my Scindapsus pictus exotica. Well, you know what? Okay, it's a theory. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I was just gonna say I could take my Scindapsus pictus exotica off of the hanging, it hangs from the ceiling in my kitchen. I could take it off of that hook and set it on a counter and see if it resolved the issue. But my Scindapsus pictus satin splash or silver splash is not hanging, and it's doing it, but it's also not trailing long enough to touch the table it's on yet. So I don't know, it was just a thought I had, but absolutely loving how this plant is doing. We have killed off quite a few leaves over the last few months though, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if maybe I was going a little too long in between waterings. And it's funny because normally when I see this, I think overwatering, but I know I haven't overwatered it. If anything, it's just been getting too dry. So I don't know if that led to this, but I've had a lot of leaves that have kind of started to do this and then they totally yellow up and die off. There's one up here that's kind of doing it as well, but it's, you know, it's not looking bald or anything like that. I've just kind of made a mental note that I probably need to start watering it more, like frequently in between waterings. And, you know, it's doing fine. Obviously you saw it, the roots are not like, there's no root rot or anything, so I don't think it's overwatering. And it's not been too many leaves, but it has had me slightly concerned. But we're still looking okay. We're still pumping out new growth. And all in all, I am absolutely loving this plant. All right, let me go grab our last plant, the crawling philodendron I was referencing, and let's see if we can get it on screen and hear. Otherwise, we're going to have to go to the kitchen. Okay, you guys, whoo, heavy. This is in LECA. This is my beautiful philodendron Plowmanii. And when you look at that newest leaf right there, do you see how big that leaf is? That is the leaf that just recently came in. I don't even know if it's fully hardened off yet. But it's massive, you guys. Like, look at it compare. I think this might have been the previous leaf. Or maybe it was that one up there. But like, look. Hopefully you can tell on screen. I know it's hard. Let me scoot back. It's like way bigger, you guys. And it's not fully hard enough. I can tell by the coloration on it. So it might get even bigger than that. But look at this thing. And I have, since the last time you saw it, I'm pretty sure I had to cut 1 or 2 older leaves off. So yeah, and there's a leaf hiding out over here by my face. This thing is just taking off. It is loving life in LECA, you guys. Absolutely loving it. It is so rooted. When I went to do the LECA flush the other day, I was shocked when I pulled it up and saw how many roots are in there. Oh my God, this thing is massively heavy. But this has been living directly in my west-facing window in my kitchen, centered in the window. That new leaf is freaking touching the window when I went to grab this just now. And it is still like, I mean, it's growing so fast, you guys. Let me try to turn it around with like out dropping it and spilling a bunch of LECA and nutrient solution everywhere so you can see the growth point. There's a new leaf already starting to come out of that growth point. Can you see like there's a little green tip up there? So it's already about to push out another new leaf. Oh my God, it's so heavy, you guys. I don't think I'm gonna be able to hold it up anymore, but it is just really taking off. Yeah, this new leaf is not nowhere near being completely hardened off, so it is probably going to, like I said, get even bigger. I am just, I'm so impressed with this plant. It's almost at the end of this pot. Let me turn it back around so you don't have to look at its backsides of its leaves. Whew. This thing is a workout and a half, let me tell you, to flush. Like, I'm probably jarring the camera all over the place, just setting it down on my desk because it is just jarring it. I also am noticing, you guys, I have never seen that. Okay, I'm gonna flash some close-up footage of what I'm seeing here. What you're seeing looks like the start of a new leaf, but it's on the backside of the base of the petiole of this newest leaf. That is so weird. I have never seen that before. That really looks like it's actually about to push out a new leaf from the growth point that I just showed you. I'm sorry, y'all can't see me. A new leaf from the growth point that I just showed you, and a new leaf from there, which I don't know if that means it's gonna become like 2 split vines crawling. Has anybody else who has owned these one of these or any kind of crawling philodendron ever had that happen before. Like, crawling philodendron are relatively new to me, you guys. This I've had this for almost a year, but we also had well, I switched it from, I was struggling with what I was talking about with the Gloriosum, with the roots on this one. So I had decided to transition it to leca, and so that took a while and it lost a bunch of leaves. I had to like reroot it in water completely, basically. So it's been in leca. I'll flash up on the screen how long it's been in leca, but it hasn't been like crazy long. So my experience with growing crawling philodendron is basically sort of less than a year. Not really, because I had the Gloriosums in rare plant inventory, but in my personal collection, because the ones in rare plant inventory, like, I'm caring for them for a few months and then they're sold. So for less than a year extended with one plant caring for it, if that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense right now. I haven't had so it's been less than a year experience with growing crawling philodendron. So like, if this is something that happens, please comment down below and let me know. It's kind of exciting if it is, but I have never seen that happen on any of these other leaves. Although I am looking right now and the last leaf that came in behind this has like a pregnant spot in the same place where it feels like another leaf could come out of. The other ones don't really have that. I don't know. That's fascinating. I didn't know that they do that. Maybe it's not gonna be another vine. Maybe it'll just be two leaves pushing from the same spot. I have no idea, guys. That's throwing me for a loop, but super exciting if that is what it is, because then it's going to look even more bushy, which I don't necessarily need it to look more bushy because it's already taking up an insane amount of space above my kitchen counter, like almost all of the space. But it loves life there, clearly, so I don't want to move it somewhere else. Now, I do have a problem, and I don't know why. I don't know if maybe I don't think the water gauge on this, this little thing over here that's supposed to tell me when the water goes down, I don't think it works. Oh, sorry, you guys, jarring the camera around. I don't think it works. I think it gets stuck. And so I'm worried that sometimes I'm not topping off the water soon enough. And maybe that's what's causing, I'm trying to figure out the best leaf to hold up to show you. You see the edges of that leaf right there. I get that on some of the leaves. This one up here is getting it a little bit on the tip. And the one back here that's going to be really hard to show you, it kind of has it as well. I don't know if maybe that's what's causing that, because in my experience with plants in leca, you don't get that super frequently. That, once again, this is just based on my personal experience, you guys. This kind of thing that I'm showing you with the leaves, that is something that I more often see on plants that are in a soil, well, it doesn't have to be soil-based, but I don't even know how. A dirt type substrate is not the best way to describe it, I guess. A dirt type substrate when you're inconsistent with your watering. So if you're overwatering sometimes, or you're underwatering sometimes, or you're flipping back and forth between the two, that's when I tend to see what I just showed you on plants. It is super common. I see it with a lot of people on like Anthurium. I only have trouble with it, and I don't have a ton of trouble with it, but it's really on my larger heart-leafed philodendron that if I'm gonna have a problem with it, that's where I usually have a problem with it over any other type of plant. But I don't typically have that problem with plants that are in leca, because you don't really have a problem with like overwatering for sure. And like I said, that's why the only thing I can think is maybe because this gauge isn't working, maybe I've let the water level get too low a few times or something, and maybe that's why it's happening. But once again, if anybody else has any thoughts, comment down below and let me know. But this plant is just, oh, it is a stunner, you guys. Look at it. It's so beautiful. I absolutely love it. Okay. Let me just go put this back so that I can finish talking to you without feeling like I'm blocked by a plant wall. All right, you guys. Well, those are my top 10 fall favorite plants. Can't believe how long I've been recording this video for. Hopefully you have found the information that I have provided about these plants useful and have enjoyed getting to see them. If so, please be sure to click that like and/or subscribe button down below, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!